How is it even possible that no one is talking about this? As I've shared in recent videos, the inexplicable catastrophic water erosion that is clearly visible throughout the Sahara Desert is so extreme that even the stripped bedrock scarring from whatever this mysterious flood event was can easily be observed from space. But the only thing more bizarre than finding such profound water erosion in the middle of the Sahara Desert, of all places, is the fact that virtually nobody within the scientific or academic community seems to be aware of it, much less discussing it, which I have to say I find quite strange. Yet the signature traits of a cataclysmic flood event are visible to all who have eyes to see. And you certainly do not have to be a geologist to distinguish the natural characteristics of water striations, but thanks to the internet, you can quite literally access undergraduate course curriculum in geomorphology that teaches us exactly what water erosion over bedrock looks like. Now, the reason why this is so important to understand is because according to everything we've been taught involving the history of climate change on Earth, any recent catastrophic water erosion in the Sahara Desert is simply not supposed to exist or even be possible, leading many to ignore this obvious fluvial erosion and foolishly dismiss it as being created by the wind and nothing more. Because after all, the idea of an ancient flood event is apparently far too fringe and pseudo to entertain, which I have to say is such a bizarre and honestly lazy thing to suggest on something that is so easily verifiable. I mean, there are so many places on Earth that are known for consistently high wind conditions, and none of them have any sort of striations such as those found in the Sahara. And the reason for this is because this is simply not what wind erosion looks like. Simply research the 10 windiest places on Earth and then view them from satellite imagery via the Google Earth app, and you will observe with your own eyes that none of these locations have any level of striations whatsoever. In fact, the #1 windiest place on Earth is Commonwealth Bay in Antarctica. And if there was any type of geological element that would make striations easy to form, it would be in snow and ice rather than bedrock. Yet you'll notice that none of these striations exist anywhere in Antarctica. Go down the list of the windiest places on Earth, whether it be Wellington, New Zealand, which is #2, or Bridge Creek in the state of Kansas, not far from Dodge City, which is the 3rd windiest, or Mount Washington in the state of New Hampshire at #4, and go all the way down the list and you'll notice the same thing every time: a complete and total lack of striations of any kind. Make no mistake, the stripped bedrock striations found throughout the Sahara Desert were created by a force of water, just like they teach would-be geologists in college. Like I always say, look and think for yourself. We all have the ability to fact-check details from our smartphones and laptops with simple movements of our fingertips. What an amazing time to be alive, am I right? But if comparisons are not convincing enough, the very fact that enormous quantities of salt exist in all prior mentioned areas of fluvial erosion is additional corresponding evidence that seawater had settled and later evaporated here following whatever this mysterious event was that blasted its way through the Sahara. Like I mentioned in my prior video, this force of water even cut its way through a 12,000-year-old lava flow, which is hard evidence that this event happened far more recently in our past than anyone thought possible. You can literally see the line of erosion that cuts off and erases that very lava flow, which nobody else seems to be discussing. And speaking of things that no one else seems to be talking about, and if everything I've shared so far isn't enough to convince you that the ocean was the cause of all this erosion, wait until you see what I found on the other side of the world. Notice those small white blemishes in the middle of Australia. Those are salt flats that make up the region of Lake Eyre, an ancient lake that sits 15 meters or nearly 50 feet below sea level. And notice the unique geological pattern that connects it to the north. Look at all those striations, identical to those that we see in the Sahara. And not only that, they are covered in salt. And so when you consider this region's elevation below sea level and that it once obviously connected to the ocean at the south, it could not be more apparent that a massive force of water once blasted its way through the middle of Australia as well. This similarity is highly significant considering that many struggle to wrap their head around the idea that the Sahara was blasted by the ocean when much of the region is currently about 1,000 feet above sea level. At least that's where it is today. However, that certainly was not always the case, as the evidence shows. And considering the consistent below sea level elevation in this region of Australia, along with the profound signatures of water-induced erosion, and along with the layer of salt that sits on top of it, in fact, so much salt that it can be clearly seen from space. When you tie all these fascinating details together, it makes it very easy for anyone to understand that whatever happened here also happened to the Sahara, and it wasn't wind. And by the way, it must be pointed out that whatever this event was is not limited to the Sahara, because if you evaluate the surrounding region, you'll notice that whatever this event was, it clearly ripped its way through the modern-day country of Sudan and Saudi Arabia and the region of the Red Sea and Persian Gulf, respectively. In fact, if you expand your search, you'll start to realize that whatever this event was seems to have originated either directly out of the Mediterranean Sea or perhaps even north of it. This raises many questions, and I'm going to explore this topic thoroughly in an upcoming video, where I will share more thoughts on what may have actually happened to cause all this. But I have to say, we must consider that the nature of certain cataclysmic events on Earth may very well be way worse than most people ever considered. But if there was one takeaway from all of this, it's the realization that the Sahara Desert was blasted by the ocean tens of millions of years more recently than what was previously known, and nobody within the scientific or academic community seems to even be aware of it. Which is startling, because the implications of whatever this event was is truly a game changer in our understanding of Earth's true geological history, and this cannot be ignored. Leave a comment and share your thoughts on all of this. Do you really think that these areas of stripped bedrock striations with salt on top of it was created by the wind? Or is it far more likely that a cataclysmic flood event that has somehow eluded scientists and researchers happened in our ancient past? But with that question, I'll close it up here. My name is Jimmy Corsetti. My channel is called Bright Insight. Hit the like button and subscribe, and stay tuned to another fascinating video real soon. Take care, everyone.